Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ron, and today we're going to be going over all the overclocks for the Sludge Pump and a build that I would recommend with them, as well as a loadout that I'd recommend with them. This will be just like the rest of the videos in this series, similar to my minigun, shard diffractor, or M1000 build. So if you've seen those videos, you know the drill about this. We're not going to be going in great depth with any of these or all the builds that you could run. Those will be saved for more in-depth videos for the specific overclock, but we will be going over the general strengths of each overclock and the general strengths of the weapon. So the very first overclock we're going to go over is a clean overclock. This is called AG mixture for the Sludge Pump. AG mixture makes it so you get increased velocity from your sludge pump, so you can fire your shots faster than they normally would go, and they also are less affected by gravity, so they can travel even further than normal. This does make it so hitting long range enemies or hitting flying enemies is far easier with the sludge pump, where the sludge pump kind of struggles with both of those. The way I have it built is like this, so I'm going with increased velocity in tier 1. This is just so that we can hit things at even further distances very easy. You could pick any of these though. In tier 1 they're all really good. Tier 2 I'm going with extra fragments. Tier 3 I'm going with extra ammo. Tier 4 I'm going with the spill pack extension so we get more ammo efficiency, and tier 5 I'm going with additional slowdown. This is a clean overclock though, and it doesn't really change the function of the weapon whatsoever, so if you have a particular build you really like running, feel free to use that one because this is super flexible. You can build it however you'd like. The sludge pump has really good choices in basically every tier. This particular build is made for more long range charge shots and for more slowdown at those longer ranges, so we can kind of keep enemies at a distance. The basic strengths of the sludge pump are still here, and they're honestly even better with this particular overclock because it does give you range. That's one thing the sludge pump is lacking. Sludge pump does really well against single targets, does really well against crowds. It has a really unique ability that you can just kind of fire this at any enemy and you'll do damage to it, so it doesn't matter if you're hitting an oppressor in the face, where every other weapon it kind of would matter, or at least most other weapons it would matter. Sludge pump doesn't really care. Same goes with dreadnoughts, just keep firing at them normally. The sludge pump also has innate armor breaking on it too, or armor eating. It will eat away the armor on any enemy, so it will allow you and your teammates to do even more damage, as well as it has slowdowns on all of its sludge too, and all of its sludge can be lit on fire. I have gotten some questions recently about if the fire actually affects the sludge in any meaningful way, both in terms of damage and if it makes the duration shorter. It does increase your damage and damage per second a decent amount, so it is worth doing, at least if you can do it. If not, then don't worry about it so much. And lighting on fire doesn't affect the duration of the sludge puddles whatsoever, so feel free to light it on fire. It's not going to slow it down anymore, and it can even spread to other sludge puddles so long as they're connected to one another. For a secondary weapon, I decided to pair this with the Sabata, and I took oversized magazine. This is a very basic overclock, and there's nothing really too special about this loadout. It functions kind of the way that you would want it to. It works well at basically all ranges and against basically all types of enemies. It's not going to be a super standout loadout against any particular enemy, but it's not going to be weak compared to any other loadout either. Our next overclock is hydrogen ion additive. This is another clean overclock that just gets you extra damage, and it also increases the slowdown from your corrosive sludge pump too. So the way I have it built is like this, although this is another clean overclock, so you can build it however you'd like. If you want to take this for regular shot damage, you can. This is built for charge shot damage. So I have larger fragments in tier 1, increased fragments in tier 2, extra ammo in tier 3, faster charge up in tier 4, and then more damage in tier 5. This one's all around a really solid overclock that works really well against everything and works really well with everything. For a secondary, I decided to pair this with the wave cooker, and for the wave cooker I just chose a clean overclock as well. I just chose a liquid cooling system, which makes it so I can use the wave cooker even more, and then I just took the contagion transmitter in tier 5 so that I could increase our damage over time with some neurotoxin on enemies when they're affected by the sludge. This will get us more slowdown, more damage over time, and more damage per second. This whole build I just built for a crowd control build, and that was really the only thing I was going for with it. You can use the wave cooker at long range to clear off any sort of web spitters or acid spitters. It's not going to do as well against Bacteria or against menaces, but against the smaller bugs it should work just fine. The next overclock I chose was Sludge Blast. This one gives you an acid shotgun, so now your charged up shots no longer fire the same way. They fire out much like a shotgun that has really long range and pretty high velocity when you fire it out, but we do have a reduced reload speed and reduced ammo overall for this. The way I like building Sludge Blast is like this, so I'm going with extra mag size in tier 1 so that we can use the blast more often, extra damage in tier 2. This just makes it so we have a bit more consistent damage when we just have to shoot at normal enemies. More ammo in tier 3, faster charge up in tier 4 so we can use those charged up shots more often. The ammo really helps with this too, just so that we're not running through ammo as much. And then extra damage in tier 5. The slowdown doesn't really help with the sludge shotgun. It's kind of difficult to use this. Mostly you want to be using the shotgun for large enemies or big groups of enemies at a reasonable distance. You don't really want to be using it right up close to enemies unless it's just a really big enemy. And then for a secondary weapon, I decided to take the EPC with heavy hitter and then just building this all for damage. So this was my plasma pistol that I was just going to shoot at anything. Main reason why I took this wasn't industrial sabotage mission. You can take this on just about any type of mission, and it's quite strong, but you might run through ammo pretty quick with it. Up next we have Goo Bomber Special, an unstable overclock that makes it so now our charge shots act like the Goo Bombers, at least when they're laying down their goo, so you can fire it and go straight down a line. This will leave a trail of goo behind us. The way I built it is just to increase that line of goo. So we have increased fragment size in tier 1, increased fragments in tier 2, extra ammo in tier 3. You could go with the slowdown in tier 3 though here too. That's also really good for this particular overclock. Spillback extension so we get better ammo out of this. And then the slowdown in tier 5. This is pretty strong on certain mission types, especially on escorts. It can be really strong on any place where you need to hold the objective though. So this could also work on salvage missions. And then to add to this, we're building a fire EPC using heat pipe. This is just built so that we can fire out quickly at the goo itself. This build is going to struggle against certain enemy types. It doesn't do particularly well against flying enemy types, and it doesn't do particularly well against long-ranged enemies. Both your primary and secondary do kind of struggle with that, but it is really good at crowd control, and it's really good at slowing down large groups of enemies. Our next overclock is Disperser Compound. This is a balanced overclock that increases our overall charge shot fragments, as well as gives us more fragment damage, but reduces our charge shot damage. That doesn't really matter too much because mostly we're just going to be using this for crowd control and the slowdown of it. The way I have it built is just like this. This is the same way I was running Goo Bomber Special, and it works really well with this one too. So we're going once again with larger puddles in tier 1, more puddles in tier 2, or more fragments in tier 2, more ammo in tier 3, better ammo in tier 4, and then slowdown in tier 5. This is a super ammo efficient build. You could pair this with fire with the EPC once again. I don't have it paired with that though. I have it paired with Gamma with the wave cooker as a secondary. This is just so that I can put more status effects on enemies, so that we can have a slowdown, armor breaking, even more slowdown from the radiation, and then also neurotoxin on top of that, so we can put a bunch of status effects on things. This can make it so you can kill crowds really easily. Very fun build. If you want a different build though, you can honestly pair this with just about anything. It's a super flexible loadout, so if you wanted more damage, you could go with something like Explosive Reload, or you could even go with something like Overcharger if you wanted even more crowd control and maybe fire on top of it. And then our final overclock is Volatile Impact Mixture. This one is super strong. This gets you more damage. It actually doubles your overall damage with just regular shots with the Sludge Pump. It also gives you more charge shot area damage, but your puddles last less. So basically you're just going to be firing this normally, just one shot at a time. It does really well against big enemies. It does really well against regular enemies because you only usually need 1 or 2 shots to kill most enemies with this. The way I have it built is like this. So I'm going with extra mag size in tier 1, more damage in tier 2, extra ammo in tier 3, faster charge up in tier 4, and then more damage in tier 5. You could go with the spillback extension in tier 4 as well. You're not going to be using charge shots too much, but just because this has less charge shot duration doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using charge shots. If you get a chance to use them against crowds, you might as well. Or if you get down to like 1 ammo in your gun, then you might as well use the charge shot because it's going to be more useful than using a regular shot anyway. This pairs really well with any of the secondaries. I decided to pair it with the Sabata, and I went with automatic fire. Where this build really excels at is close to medium range, and it is a extremely strong loadout, especially against dreadnoughts. This one just shreds right through them. So these were all of the Sludge Pumps overclocks and some loadouts that I'd recommend for them. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so very much for watching this. I really do appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.